The following recording has been created by Youth Out Loud and supported by Healthwatch Kingston. It has been funded by the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames Resilience Fund.
Hello, welcome. I'm Scott Bacon from Healthwatch Kingston and Youth Out Loud. I'm joined today by Julie for our podcast on access to NHS and social care services for young people. Julie, thank you for joining us. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story?
Hi there, I'm Julie, and my story really is based around my daughter's needs. So, my daughter is now currently 16, and she has a diagnosis of autism, and she also has a diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome. These diagnoses were made quite late, really, for her age. So she was diagnosed with autism at around 15 and also chronic fatigue around that age as well. Obviously, she's had these for many years and they've gone undiagnosed.
Well, thank you, Julie. So you mentioned they went undiagnosed. But obviously, when we were preparing for this, you mentioned there was a few times when actually there was interaction with sort of medical teams to try and get a diagnosis. Can you tell us a bit more about what happened there?
Yeah, that's right. So when she was around 7 years old, I made a referral myself to CAMS because I felt that there was something there that wasn't quite right. That my reasoning behind that was that she would always prefer adult company. She would always want to be around me. She wouldn't go off and play with other children. Social groups she found very difficult, and school she found quite hard as well. So I made this referral and she was seen, and the psychologists and pediatricians put it down to the fact that she was actually a young carer and the fact that her brother had a terminal condition, and felt that a lot of her behaviours were down to her being anxious and worried about the need of her brother. So away we went. And again, over the years, everything really came to a head, I guess, because things just got worse. It affected her eating. She would only wear certain clothes. She found being in social situations extremely difficult. She found school very difficult. She would get upset at a lot of different things. And I also have an older daughter, so I had something to compare to, I guess, as well. And the fact that I've worked with children over the years. And again, I contacted school. By this time, she was in secondary school, and they felt that she was absolutely fine in school, and they felt there was no need to make any referrals. So I then again made a referral to SPA, which is single point of access, and spoke about my concerns and my worries and her low mood. We then eventually had an appointment, and we were seen by a lovely lady from CAMS, and she listened to everything, and she automatically felt, yes, I was right. I wasn't just dreaming these things. There probably was an extra diagnosis there to be had. We were then sent some forms to fill in, and we then eventually had an assessment. Obviously, we did have to wait a long time because the waiting times are quite long at the moment. And she was diagnosed with autism. This was okay because really I had prepared my daughter for the fact that this probably would be the diagnosis. And obviously just said to her, she's still the same person. She's absolutely fine. So that's how we went with that. With her chronic fatigue diagnosis, that was a little bit different because I kept taking her to the doctors because she had a lot of fast heart rates and she just didn't have the energy. She wasn't able to eat. And because of the autism diagnosis, I wasn't really sure, was this linked at all? And when I say I kept taking her to the doctors, we were probably there at least once a month. So she would have headaches. Like I said, she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't be able to go out, she would have pains in her legs and lots of different things. So she had a number of tests done, like blood tests, And eventually we were seen by the paediatricians at the hospital, Kingston. And out of the blue, to be quite honest, we were diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And that did come as a complete shock. But then over the years, when we've thought back, it's like, well, yeah, actually, it probably makes sense now. Yes, you're right. So that's really how that has come about. And then following on from that, we've also been trying to secure an EHCP for my daughter because her attendance has been very low at school, down to like 23%. And school kept saying, no, she was absolutely fine. She would manage. And I could see that that wasn't the case. And my daughter could tell me that wasn't the case either. So I've then gone on to actually do a parental EHCP. And because the LA refused to assess, I then had to take it to mediation to get an assessment. Once she had the assessment, the psychologist, I felt, actually concerned more around her needs of her autism diagnosis and didn't really go into her chronic fatigue syndrome diagnosis and what she actually needed support with in that area. We then went on to secure her an EHCP, which I had to do with the help of a solicitor, which we paid for. So now my daughter is 16. She is going off to college. She's just doing her GCSEs now, and she's going off to college.
Okay, that's great. So she's got off to college. There's when you were seeing the doctor, were you able to see the same people, or was it different when you went?
So now we're currently under Kingston Hospital. And every time we actually went to Kingston Hospital, we would be seen by a different doctor. So obviously, this meant that myself and my daughter would actually have to tell her story again and again. And because chronic fatigue syndrome, you actually don't have much memory and concentration, she found this extremely difficult. I then spoke up for my daughter, obviously with her permission, but we also had a doctor who obviously didn't really know too much about ME, who recommended that she would need to go off running to try and improve her ME diagnosis. And my daughter was clearly saying, I can't actually even get out of bed some days. How am I supposed to go running? And she felt this, it was very difficult. She was also asked about, did she feel that she had an eating disorder like anorexia? Because again, with ME and autism, she finds it difficult to be able to eat a lot of food sometimes. So actually, a lot of the time she came away from these appointments quite down because it was a lot for her to have to go through. We then also eventually got referred to University College Hospital London, because when you go to the local hospitals, they don't have consultants or paediatricians who are specialists in chronic fatigue syndrome. So as much as they're helping you, they can only help so much.
Yeah.
So I'd honestly read up on the internet about the facilities available for young people with chronic fatigue. As part of the EHCP process, we also had a assessment done from the team for disabled. So they came out and did a visit and they spoke to Evie. And the result of that basically was that she wasn't severe enough to be on the disability team register. One of the things that did probably concern us both was that the social worker was unaware that chronic fatigue syndrome was classed as a disability. And obviously, I understand that we all have to learn. So I just sent him some information around chronic fatigue syndrome. So hopefully he'll be better informed in future.
With the assessment, did you get any information sort of prior to it, sort of the questions they'd be asking?
No.
That mean you had no information around how to answer those questions as well. Would that have been useful, do you think?
Yes, I guess it probably would have been useful. And the only reason we actually probably got that was that our solicitor in our EHCP mediation meeting suggested that we have this assessment for my daughter.
Okay. And since the diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome, and do you have any more tips that are more practical? Any more support since that diagnosis?
Well, now that eventually we've been referred and been accepted at University College, that happened after, like, I think two referrals, from one from the GP, and I think the social worker obviously contacted them as well. She's actually been invited to some online groups. So one of them has been around like mental health and well-being. She's also attended one on sleeping, which has like probably helped her, I would say, as well. Um, and then she is now being seen quite regularly by the team at University College. They've also been monitoring her medication as well. And she is also going to take a OT therapy course and physiotherapy. At school, they actually did put in place some occupational therapy sessions for my daughter. And there would be a couple of, well, I think there was a time where she actually couldn't even get out of bed. And we had to ask for them to actually come and do a home visit because she wouldn't have been able to. And then it was quite good because I suppose she actually could see for herself and feedback to the school and the rest of the team. She actually witnessed how bad her ME was on that
Mm.
day, that she couldn't actually get out of bed without some support. So my child is also having some drama therapy at the moment as well at school, and that's around her being able to talk on a one-to-one basis and explore really her feelings about how it impacts her as a young person, not being able to go out and socialize. I literally have to take her to school, I have to collect her from school. If she does get to go out to her friends, again, she relies on me for transport as well. The same with all the hospital appointments as well. We also, as I spoke earlier, she has a brother with learning needs and also health needs. And I'm also his main carer. So he also comes with us to the hospital appointments, which can be quite difficult because he gets confused and thinks actually they're his hospital appointments.
Okay.
And also, my daughter needs that particular time on her own to be able to say what she needs to at these appointments. Sometimes I need to give him medication while I'm in
Yeah.
these appointments with my daughter. So it can be quite difficult to do that. We also, if we have to go to University College Hospital, because of the parking involved, even though we have a blue badge for my son, also it's very difficult to park there because of her chronic fatigue syndrome and then my son's additional heart failure. We can't actually use the trains, so we have to get an Uber to the hospital and back. We're lucky we're in a situation where we can afford that, but obviously we are aware that there are lots of families who are not.
Mm.
So I'm guessing really as a family, having her health needs and about how it's impacted us, it, to be honest, as a parent, it's absolutely heartbreaking to watch your teenage daughter not go out and be a teenager. At some point, she just says, I don't feel I have a life. I feel that chronic fatigue syndrome, rules my life. I don't rule it.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to hear, I think. It means that there are days where a lot of the time we're spent indoors because she can't really go out and access things. Chronic fatigue syndrome is so varied that one day she'll be okay and she can go out and do a little walk or do something, but yet then she might pay for it for the next 2 days or so. And then there's other days where, like I've said before, she can't actually physically get out of bed. And that even means she'll need help to be able to get to the bathroom. This impacts everything. We have to be, very, really careful about what we choose to do as a family for activities. whether or not we do holidays or anything really, we have to always bear in mind that actually she might not be able to make it to these places.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very hard to hear. Well, thank you for sharing. I was going to ask, have you heard back from the social worker since you told him, obviously, chronic fatigue syndrome is this disability? Has there been any further conversations? Have you been able to appeal that original decision?
No, so we haven't heard back from the social worker from the team for disabled. He was good. He did definitely listen to my daughter and take her views on board. But I'm guessing the fact that, obviously there's so many budget cuts and the services will only go to the most severe in the borough, I'm
Hmm.
guessing. So that's quite difficult because obviously there isn't really much for these other young people who don't really fit into any category, I guess.
What do you think would help your daughter and obviously for you guys to have a better life? What support would you be hoping for?
I'm guessing really that because I think I'm quite lucky, I feel I'm quite a strong person that I've been able to fight and advocate for my daughter.
Yeah,
I'm aware that there are an awful lot of people who would just give up and would not be able to seek the support for
yeah,
their. I'm thinking really that it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this difficult to actually get the support and the referrals to make your child's life better. I'm hoping that by doing this, that people are going to realise and they're going to listen about how much families really are struggling and make it easier for families. I think the main thing is that families, like including my daughter and myself, but mainly my daughter, their voices are not listened to. Everybody says, oh, the voice is of the child is really important. We listen. You as a parent, you know her best, you know her. But actually, when it comes down to it, we've been in meeting after meeting where my daughter has spoken up and said about how this makes her feel and how much she is struggling. And I have said the same, and people do not listen. And a lot of the time, also, my daughter feels that things are not followed through. She might be told, yes, this will happen, or we'll do this. But in reality, it doesn't happen, or it might last for a couple of weeks and then things will go back to the same. And so, as a child, I think she feels that she's not listened to. So, and she's also told the social worker team and like school that she asks me to speak up for her because she doesn't feel that she's listened to. And that's really sad, I think, for a young person to feel that way. And also, as a parent, that I know my child, I'm not asking for anything more than what she deserves. She
yeah.
deserves to be able to grow up into a healthy young person and have as much support and be able to access everything else that all of her peers can do.
I agree. Yeah, just want to thank you again for your time and sharing. It's been really interesting to hear. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Youth Out Loud is a group of young people helping to improve our local health and care services. We work with Healthwatch Kingston and we use our voices to make health and care services better for young people.